Okay, I got to tell you, this is going to be one of the most life-changing videos that you could ever watch. It's really radical, and there's a lot of good information, and I'm going to have to do it in probably 2 or 3 videos because it's just way too long to do in one. And I know that people like me to keep my videos short because it's easier to handle. But we're going to get into the discussion of oils, particularly seed oils, and their detrimental effect on the mitochondria, the mechanism, the mechanism that they foul up in our system that creates havoc. I mean, real havoc. It causes obesity, fibromyalgia, cancer, heart problems. If you have an ailment, I can guarantee I can relate it back to the way you are eating. And it's not your fault. Part of the problem comes from the USDA. The USDA set up some guidelines starting back in the forever. And then back in the 60s and 70s, they started favoring this low carbohydrate or low fat, high carbohydrate diet with a lot of seed oils. And they promoted grains. They had a pyramid. And on the pyramid for the eating chart, it was like the whole bottom part was nothing but whole grains and seeds and stuff like that. And then it went in, and the very top part of it was protein and meats and things like that. A very little bit of that. And the reason that started too, by the way, was it came about 1955 when our president at the time, um, Dwight Eisenhower, who was an ex-general in fact, he was the head general for the Normandy invasion of France, and he was kind of head of over all the Allied forces and whatnot. But he was so popular, he was elected president as a Republican, and he had a heart attack in 1955, and he was out of work, out of the office for about 10 days. And in fact, during that time, they shifted the presidential powers to Richard Nixon, his vice president at that time. So people were a little panicky that we were starting to have all these heart disease problems because back in the 1800s, it was non-existent. You could probably count the number of people that died of heart failure, except for the inherited valve problems that people did have, on one hand, less than 5 people in the 1800s. And then it slowly started creeping up. It started getting more serious in the 40s and the 50s when we started following a lot of guidance that wasn't really based on good research. One of the things was a guy named Ancel Keys. He was the head of the American Heart Association. And he really needed to get the American Heart Association on the map. Right up until the time he came along, it was kind of just a small organization. And so he developed this guide to help people prevent heart problems. And part of what he developed was from a study that he did called the Seven Nation Study. And it took into account the United States and Finland and Italy and some Baltic country, and then Greece, the island of Crete, and Japan. That was all part of this study. And he really favored the island of Crete because he'd visited that 3 different times for a total of 3 weeks. And each time he had done a week study on the people in that country, on that island. And one of the times that he visited was during Lent. And during Lent, in a 90% Greek Orthodox country or island, they don't eat dairy, they don't eat meat, they don't eat things for that whole week of Lent. So to be honest with you, it kind of skewed his numbers. The second thing that was faulty with his research was that it didn't cover a large enough span of people. I mean, span of time. It was usually 2 or 3 weeks was the longest time the study went, and that's not near long enough to even get the toxins out of your system. To be honest with you, because when we talk later on about this, I'm going to talk about how long it takes to get these toxins out of your body. It can take years. Okay, I just want to give you a fair warning about that. But one of the ways that he was able to get on the map with this American Heart Association was that he had teamed up with Procter & Gamble, who happens to make Crisco, a high omega-6 fatty type oil that's crystallized. And he developed this chart of how to eat, and it favored a lot of seed oils, which of course Procter & Gamble produced. They gave him $1.7 million and a radio show. So you got to understand how this money plays a role here and how politics play a role. You know, we talked about all these different things before. There you go. There's a good example of something that is influencing supposedly science with money, and that's not right. And so that's where this whole thing started, was back then. So people were following this stuff, and they were getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And if you look at some graphs, which I'm going to refer to I'm going to give you a whole lot of references of people that are going to help me out here with these graphs and with the statistics and understanding the mechanics of how these little cells work and how the seed oils affect these cells and how PUFA affects our bodies, and how when we do follow these type of diets that we're getting ourselves in trouble. So we're going to refer to Chris Noble, Dr. Chris Noble. Tucker Goodwin is one of my favorite people to watch on this. Tucker Goodrich. He he's a researcher, and he started out in Wall Street and did 3 years of high octane trading, and then went off into the IT department, and then he started doing some research about his problems. He had a lot of problems, personal problems with colon rectal problems, and he had severe diarrhea, and he had a lot of difficult problems with his body. And one of the things that he started to research was about these seed oils and how much they affect us, and how one day he was in the lunch line, and he decided to, when he got to the salad dressing, he looked at the oils and he decided, I don't think I'm going to even want the oils. I think I'll just do away with the oils. And so he decided to skip the oils, and within 3 days, his diarrhea had disappeared. That is an amazing situation. That's an amazing discovery, actually. He goes on a big litany of all the medical problems that he's had, and bringing you up to date, he basically he eats a meat diet with no seed oils, or very little seed oils. And if he has seed oils, he has more of the fruit seed oils, the pure, the ultra pure olive oil or the coconut type oil. And so he's eliminated the chicken because of what they're fed. They're fed a lot of grains, and those grains are the problem. He's eliminated a lot of the oils themselves because they give him diarrhea. And then there's a Dr. Sonjoy Gucci and Nina Tichols. She is a journalist that got into this thing and started looking at the seed oils and the detrimental effect on them. And she's got some wonderful charts about how we used to eat back in the 1800s and what our health looked like and how it started to move. And then about 1980, it shot up like exponentially. That's when people were really following this low, the low fat, high carbohydrate seed oil diet. Okay. And then we have a Dr. Kate Shanahay, who gives some more good explanations. So I'm going to put some links. I have to put all these links in my explanation below to give you a fair shot at looking at this stuff. But anyway, I want to go on and talk about one of the things that Kate wrote. She wrote a book called The Big Fat Surprise. Nina wrote this book, and she talks a lot about how these guidelines were developed and what the basic science behind these guidelines were and how much they had actually failed. There was some parts of the seven country study that were hidden for years, and then 18 years ago they were dug up. And it was interesting because it really countered all of their findings, and they were buried in the archives somewhere in a basement. So these are some things that we need to pay attention to and learn. It kind of goes back to my presentation that I made about the 5 micron, the death of the 5 micron droplet. It's the same idea. It was based on faulty science to begin with that was misinterpreted, and it wasn't disclosed completely, or it was the science by itself was not good science. So now we have to look at what is good science. And the reason I got on this, I want to tell you, is that I follow Dr. Jordan Peterson an awful lot. I do domestic violence groups, and we share a lot of little snippets of information about some of the things that he talks about, because I think he's a real progressive thinker, and he's probably one of the greatest thinkers in our century right now. And among others, there's more. But one of the things, his daughter had gone through all kinds of serious problems, and she started on an early age of having all kinds of intestinal problems and different problems and everything. And finally, I'm going to guess, if my memory serves me right, it was 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago, she went on an all meat diet. That's it. Nothing else, no vegetables, no fruit, no anything else, just meat. And I thought, wow, that's pretty drastic. And I'm not sure that I would want to support that thing. So he'd gotten into some trouble too with his health, and he ended up going to Russia for treatment, and he ended up doing a recovery stint in the Crimea, one of the Baltic countries. So he was able to get into a recovery situation where he was doing better, and now he has gone almost to an all meat diet, and it's cleared up all of his problems. Although he does look a little bit like he could use a little weight. I noticed that lately in some of his videos, but beside the point. So I'm going to go on a journey with you guys. And my journey is almost a challenge for you. I have measured my tummy because over the course of this pandemic, I put on some weight, and the doctor tells me I put on 10 pounds. But I think I put it all on my tummy. And so um, I have been trying to do this stealth core exercise mechanism, and then, but what the doctor told me was, that you need to get back to riding your bike. So I got my bike all tuned up, and I'm back to riding my bike now. So I'm going to kind of give you some updates periodically about how my weight's going and how my tummy's going down, because I really feel that when I change some of the things that I'm doing, it's going to improve my appearance. It's going to improve my energy level, and it's going to improve my weight, because I weigh probably now about 160 pounds. I should weigh about 150. I'm 5'8", and 150 is a good weight for me. So that's what we're going to be looking at in the next 2 or 3 of these videos. So stay tuned, and we'll keep you informed about what's going on. And I'm going to post all of these. I'm going to post all of these different um, references in my blog. I mean, in the interest of my thing below. So you'll see them there. Okay. All right. So we're going to end it for right now.